The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
And we're back, and we got Major Mike Hall with us again tonight. Good to see you, Mike. And we got Mike's friend Jeff Capps joined us tonight as well. Self-defense expert, martial artist, firearms, the whole 9 yards. Nice to have you here, Jeff.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on.
We got a little bit of connectivity issues tonight, so bear with us. And Jeff Nicholas should be joining us in a little while as well. But we're just going to jump right in. And I've got a video from Fox that I want to start off with that kind of sets the tone for tonight. Just give me 2 seconds to pull it up here. All right, here we go.
John Brennan is the epitome of this swamp. This guy, talking about treason as it relates to Donald Trump, is absurd. He voted for a communist for president of the United States. I mean, don't people understand that? He's the one who peddled the dossier. He's the one who knew that Hillary Clinton paid for a fake dossier and then went all over Washington and started the investigation against Donald Trump. You think he's biased? John Brennan is the epitome of this swamp. For this guy to talk about...
So that's kind of the theme of chapter 1 tonight. John Brennan essentially being an enemy of the state. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with Patrick Byrne, but Patrick Byrne was the CEO of Overstock.com. And while he did that, the Senate Intelligence Committee approached him and asked him to become an asset. And so he worked on behalf of the Senate Intelligence Committee for many, many years and was involved in some pretty unusual operations. And one of those operations was he went back to Brennan and said that he had evidence that Turkey had bribed Hillary Clinton with $20 million and turned over a bunch of information. So Brennan gave him another $18 million and said, let's just make sure we've got all our ducks in a row to go bribe Hillary with $18 million. And after she took the bribe, Brennan and Obama went to Hillary and said, we have evidence of you taking these bribes, and you're going to be the president the next 8 years. So this was in 2016. And we're going to put a Bunsen burner under your ass. And if you're a good girl, we'll keep the flame low. And if you're a bad girl, we're going to turn the flame up. And when your 8 years is up, we're going to put Michael Obama in for another 8 years. And that'll give us a 24-year run to turn the country into essentially a communist state. So Patrick Byrne, I've spoken to him a few times online and offline, and he's reiterated over and over again, Obama's not the chief puppet master. Brennan is the bridge between, the NWO, the cabals, whatever you want to call the globalists, and that Obama actually answers to John Brennan. And when he first mentioned that, I went back and I watched some old press conferences when Obama's at the podium and John Brennan's standing beside him. And you can see John Brennan's reactions in advance. It just was very obviously scripted. So, Mike, I'll go to you first as far as Judge Jeannie's, clip is concerned there. Do you have any thoughts on John Brennan?
Yeah, man. She did. That was what
we've got no audio from you, Mike. We didn't catch any of that.
How about now, brother?
Yeah, it's kind of cutting in and out. And I think, yeah, we're getting some audio feedback from Mike as well, but Jeff, pardon me, but you're cutting in and out.
How about now, man?
You caught about half of that. And Jeff, I got you on mute just for a second because we're getting some background noise, but when I call on you, I'll turn your mic back on just so you're in the loop. Is there anywhere else you can move in the building by chance, Mike, to get a little better signal? All right. Well, while Mike is trying to figure that out, Jeff kind of throwing you to the wolves here. First time on Survival Dispatch News. Didn't give you much to warm up with. Do you have any impressions or comments on John Brennan that you'd like to make, or would you prefer not to be on the deep state's radar?
Research and indeed, Brennan's been there for a very long time, and his end seems to be based a lot on his past, and some of the stories that are out there about him actually studying Islam. In one of his videos, he talks about having long hair, learning the Quran, and being very sympathetic to the Muslim population. And I think it's maybe tainted his judgment, and I think with regard to guys trying to accomplish, he's.
Hey Jeff, your audio is cutting in and out as well. Let me see if I can call you and put you on speakerphone. Let's see if we can make that work.
Yes, sir. How's that?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear you fine. We just got to mute your mic. Mute your mic on your computer, and we should be good.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Just get a quick sound check from the audience. Say something again, Jeff.
Okay, so I didn't turn my mic off on here, but I'm assuming you can do that from your end.
Yeah, I've got it turned off.
Okay, so I can mute it. When you tell me to, I'll mute it. I'll mute it here whenever I get finished.
You're good. Your audio is really clear on my phone. As long as the audience can hear, yeah, we got some feedback that they can hear you fine. What I might do is I think I'm going to call Mike Hall as well. Or Mike, do you think you got a better signal?
How's that? Is that any better now, man?
That's really good. That's clear. So apologies for the technical difficulties. We got Mike situated now. We got Jeff coming over the phone. Apologies, Jeff. Let's go back to the beginning. Thoughts and impressions on John Brennan.
I think he's a guy that's had a lot of power for a long time. I think his background kind of denotes where he's coming from. And personally, I don't know that he has the best interest of anybody but John Brennan when it comes down to it. And you can see the influence down in McCabe. Stroke, I believe is the guy's name, Michael Steele, how they manipulated the whole thing in 2016. I think it's a sad part of American politics that it goes that way. But at the same time, I don't know why we're expecting more, because we saw it. It's been pretty evident the whole time.
Yeah, that's well said. I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia article, or listing, I should say, page, whatever, on John Brennan. I want to add one quick thing to that you brought up, Jeff, while your audio was cracking up. He speaks very fluent Arabic and Farsi. And if memory serves me right, his wife is from Iran, and he practices the Muslim faith, which on its own doesn't necessarily make him a bad guy, but his actions speak louder than words. He's been a pretty shady character, and we're going to get into it, but Judge Genie was right on the money. He was the mastermind behind the whole Steele dossier, the Russia bullshit, and he's done a pretty good job of insulating himself, because I don't think that most Americans recognize him as the head of the snake. And it's probably like a hydra, right? There's lots of heads, but he's the one that's in between our government and the globalist. So let me go to the next article here. All right. So here we go. An earth-shattering report just came out that proves the CIA under Obama, with Brennan at the helm, orchestrated and collaborated with Five Eyes. So that's the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, intelligence agencies to frame President Trump as a Russian agent during the Russiagate hoax. The gravity of this realization cannot be understated. So I'm going to play the whole video on this, and then we'll discuss it next.
Of curating the 2016 Russia collusion hoax by asking foreign intelligence agencies to illegally spy on the Trump campaign.
Lucas Tomlinson in Washington with more. Lucas.
Good early morning, Carly and Todd. This report from Substack, citing multiple unnamed sources, claims the U.S. intelligence community asked foreign spy agencies to help spy on more than 24 associates of Donald Trump in the run-up to the 2016 election. It reads in part, quote, President Barack Obama's CIA director, John Brennan, had identified 26 Trump associates for the Five Eyes to target. A source confirmed that the IC had identified them as people to bump or make contact with or manipulate. They were targets of our own IC and law enforcement, targets for collection and misinformation. Now, the Five Eyes nations are the U.S., U.K., Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Here's one of the reporters, Michael Schellenberger, who spoke to Jesse Waters last night.
If this binder contains what we have been told that it contains, which may include raw intelligence, information showing that the U.S. government, the CIA and the intelligence community of the U.S. government, initiated the Russia collusion hoax, that it did not occur in the way that the official story, including the Durham investigation, had portrayed it, then that's extremely serious information.
The report was released at the same time House conservatives are preparing a bill that would reauthorize Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act that allows the government to collect communications from foreigners abroad. And today, the House Rules Committee is set to meet over that FISA reform bill, guys.
Lucas Tomlinson, quite a bombshell. Thank you, sir.
So I'll go to you first, Mike. Does any of that surprise you, that it's come out definitively that Brennan was behind all of this?
No, man, it is no surprise whatsoever. You know, the only surprise is that it took this long. We're getting information a little quicker than we used to, however, but that three-letter agency right there, people do not understand. They watch the movies and they see all this, the TV shows, but this is a real thing. That is a real thing. You hear about Putin and the KGB. I hope everyone understands that is our KGB. So some people equate that with one another, but that is very meticulous, very thought out, and very well planned on his part. It just depends on what side of the house you're on, right, and what the end goal and the objective is. So, yeah, they've got it.
I suspect a lot of Americans also don't realize that he was in the CIA starting in 1980, and that he was a strong proponent of socialism, Marxism, and communism. And when the judge said that he voted for a communist candidate, she wasn't kidding. So here's an article here, or a post. Who is John Brennan? He's a communist. In 1976 presidential election, he voted for Gus Hall, Communist Party candidate, not Carter or Ford. Brennan said because he didn't like the system. He is pro-Russia and became a member of the CIA in 1980. So it's not hard to find this information. But again, the news cycle moves so fast that Americans in general, we've been trained to jump from the top of the news cycle to the next, to the next, to the next, and respond like a dog and pony show. But Jeff, did you know that John Brennan was basically a sworn communist? I mean, this is the connection between him and Obama.
Yes, sir. When you sent me the information, I did some digging today, and I did see that. And he voted for this Hall character, but that wasn't his only affiliation in regard to that. So in one of his videos, he talks about wandering through Europe or wherever it was he was talking about, and he had long hair and an earring, and how he was embraced by the Muslim community. He openly talked about that. The one thing that you didn't hear about through his own verbalization was the fact that he was a communist sympathizer, a fellow traveler, whatever you want to call it. And I don't believe that was some cover for him. I believe that's who he is. And as such, if you knew these facts, and of course, I think sometimes they do their best to try to cover them up. If you know these facts, then I don't think it should surprise anybody. And I don't think really much of anything should surprise anybody anyway these days, because like you said, the way the news travel cycles are so fast, it's like, holy crap, I did not know that. And then all you have to do is get on the internet. You can find out anything you want to find out. And then sometimes it's a rabbit hole. You look back and go, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah, well said. If we have time, we'll discuss some revelations today that our enemies have hacked essentially 8 carrier networks. Are you still with us, Jeff, on the phone?
I am on the phone,
okay.
Yes, sir. I'm
all right.
Going in on the studio, but I'm still with you.
Okay, appreciate it. So there was news today that 8 fairly prominent telcos, so telephone companies, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, a whole bunch of foreign ones as well, have been compromised. And the advice given by our intelligence agencies was, don't say anything on anybody's network that you don't want the whole world to hear, number one. And then number two, which cracks me up, is, and they've done this before, and I'm sure you know this, Mike and Jeff, is they recommended that people use the Signal app because it's open source and encrypted and doesn't have any backdoors. So, we've been recommending. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just saying that's what's going on right now, man. Before I got on, my phone had been in SOS status for 30, 45 minutes. And so there's no reason for it. Of course, yeah, it's an overcast night, but I'm telling you, man, something is going on with the waves right now. I guarantee it. We don't ever used to have this much trouble connecting and hearing each other, just in general. So that makes complete sense.
So earlier this year, y'all remember the big Verizon outage that also took down part of AT&T and T-Mobile's network. It was in February.
Right. Yep.
So one of our guys has a family member inside the cyber team in the Army, and he reached out to him and said, what do you think this is? And the person responded back, this is a cyber attack, no ifs, ands, or buts. We're all over it. And then a week later, they said it was a software update, but we had towers that a lot of towers have all 3 carriers on them, right? And those towers, you would have all 3 of them go down. Well, that wouldn't happen unless all 3 of them were subject to the same software update, which they weren't. It was back-end stuff specific to them. It wasn't hard to figure out. And then, of course, it wasn't too long after that they made the announcement that every single customer's data from AT&T was taken at that time as well. So we know all of our networks are very, very weak. And here's the thing. The timing, and Mike, you probably got some comments on this, being in the military and law enforcement before that. If and when we get these terrorist attacks that have been on our radar for a long time now, the JTTF has been tracking all kinds of terrorist, plots, and they do something like a simultaneous attack across the country, which is, there's been a lot of open source intel to that effect as well. I don't think that they'll take the communication networks down because they'll want everybody to know what they did. I think they'll wait. If they do a bunch of simultaneous attacks today, tomorrow, and the next day, the country's crippled, right? Nobody's sending their kids to school. Nobody's going to work. Everybody knows that it's been terrorist attacks. That's when I think they shut everything off, like the grids and the comms. What do you think of that, Mike?
And when we see the MO, that will tell me at least where that terrorist attack came from. I think that, of course, the Middle East is real big on the significance of something and getting it out there, that, like you were talking about, they want everybody to know who did it, what they did, and what impact they had. Now, however, I don't know if Russia or even maybe China would want that. All they're worried about is crippling our infrastructure and crippling us from the inside out, right? So I don't know if they may take out the towers as well. I think their strategy is a little bit different than those in the Middle East and Iran and those who want everyone, the world, to know what just happened to us by them.
Yeah, good points. Jeff, do you want to weigh in on the terrorist threat?
I think their biggest weapon is fear. And Lord knows they can do that with the flip of a switch.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen this in the recent past, and it was fear that kept us from going places and doing things. And that's got to be the most crippling thing they could put on us. Because at some point in time, American people just get up and they say, we're going anyway, we don't care. And whatever's going to happen is going to happen because we have things we have to do. But still, the fear of something, I totally agree with Mike. But if it came from the Middle East, I believe they'd step up and say, yeah, we did it. And but I believe there are clandestine things with, in particular, China, that they know, but they're not going to admit to anything. And the same thing with Russia. They're going to they're going to be, Putin's going to have a smile on his face going, we don't know what you're talking about. And then here we are with, perhaps our infrastructure crippled, the power grid, the transportation grid, some of the major cities. All you have to do is mess up a bunch of red lights in New York City, and those people are screwed. And that's easy enough done, but I understand.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Jeff. I hadn't pondered that one before, but yeah, absolutely. It makes me kind of laugh. Mike, do you remember here's the deal, Jeff. When we hit something, if there's a rabbit hole or a tangent, we always explore it and go down it. Mike, do you remember in the late 80s, early 90s when Dallas proper deployed systems on all of the main traffic lights that if a strobe light hit them off of an ambulance or cop car, it changed the lights, and then everybody and their dog was carrying strobe lights around their truck, and they'd come up to a light and shine at the light. And yeah. Actually, you were probably law enforcement at the time, because if memory serves me right, the first offense was $500 and the second offense was $1,000 or something like that. But everybody and their dog had one of them floodlights to set the dang things off.
Got in on that. Should have really bought in during that time. That whoever, yeah, they selling millions of those things.
Yeah, it's too funny. So anyway, just to get back on track. So, John, I've got a comment up here on the screen. 5G has been weaponized as unnecessary for normal communication. So we have to tiptoe around this subject because we're broadcasting to YouTube in addition to Rumble and X and LinkedIn and Facebook. Because if you say anything untowards with regards to 5G, you'll get a strike on YouTube. We've got 2 based on 5G stuff. What I will say is that my good friend Todd Callender, very notorious attorney, he's the guy who sued DOD and Lloyd Austin over the things that go on your shoulder. I took it all the way to SCOTUS, 51 attorneys. He was a lead attorney. He's the CEO of a global insurance company whose holdings are bigger than Berkshire Hathaway. He owns the Cloud Hub social media platform. The list goes on and on. He has launched a website, projectarchimedes.org. And he's organizing what will essentially be the largest class action lawsuit in history. And he is suing all of the 5G plus, manufacturers, the telcos, everybody, government agencies involved. And if you keep an eye out for Dr. Jason Dean, Brave TV on Rumble, we're doing a 9-part docuseries on this. We filmed the first installment of it this week, and you'll hear all about 5G. And John is absolutely right. That's a great comment on his part, by the way. So let me play this video on this one that I've got pulled up here. This was right after Mar-a-Lago was raided. And for anybody who's not aware, there were FBI agents who bragged about going through Melania Trump's undergarments and stuff. I mean, sick stuff. And then on top of that, if this is the right video that I recall, they grabbed documents that had been declassified by Trump, and they put a cover page on it saying that it was classified information, and then put it in these nice little binders, and then took their pictures and didn't admit to it initially, but to make it look like it was damning evidence when it wasn't. Of course, we know where that went now. The whole thing's been dropped, but just the lies in this video are, slap in the face.
So I'm sure the Russians were looking at it after January 20th of 2021 and trying to determine how best to gain access to Mar-a-Lago. Having somebody go in there, either as a member of a cleaning staff or a caterer or a guest, to identify locations in that compound where documents might be stored, and then access those rooms with those documents, probably at a time when Trump was not there, maybe when he decamped to Bedminster, New Jersey last summer, because that minimizes the Secret Service presence on the compound. Then you go in and then you start making copies of all the documents that look important. And if they saw those cover sheets that say top secret, SCI, HCS, those are the ones that they would copy. But they would put those papers and documents back exactly where they found them. And which makes this a nightmare for the intelligence community, unless there was unfettered, continuous, 24/7 video surveillance coverage of every place that those documents were. The intelligence community will not know whether or not individuals made copies of those highly sensitive documents, which is why I think the damage potentially is incalculable based on the failure to be able to understand exactly what might have been compromised. I work very closely with Hillary Clinton. She worked tirelessly to advance U.S. national security interests around the clock. She didn't do the things that Donald Trump has done, as you pointed out, as he has so many multiple interests in terms of financial, personal, political, partisan, you name it. And the types of things that he's doing, it reminds me of some individual U.S. government officials who were recruited by foreign intelligence services who did their utmost to conceal their activities, to conceal the documents that they might have taken and stolen from the U.S. government. And so therefore, it's clearly that he had nefarious intentions, which is why I think it's so important that the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the intelligence community get to the bottom of this, because it is nothing short of our national security that is at stake.
So if nothing else, you got to give him credit for being extremely articulate, and extremely articulate, pardon me, in multiple different languages. But him saying that Hillary Clinton, had done this great job, part of that was, and this is from Patrick Byrne again, he said that they contemplated when they were going to put Joe Biden on the shelf instead of Kamala, there was actually strong consideration of running Hillary again. But their internal polling showed that they didn't think that she could beat Trump, even with all the cheating and whatnot. I mean, is there anything in that clip that you want to comment on, Mike? You with me, Mike? Mike, can you hear me? I'll go to you, Jeff. You still on the phone?
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, there's something going on.
Oh, hold on. We got Mike back now.
You. Mark this. I'll mark this time and date down with these towers. I'm serious. Something going on. But my question is this, because it's obvious, like you and I were talking about, Chris, it's obvious, man. Who is pulling his strings? Who's got him? Where's his interests at? Because that is anybody with eyes could see that was a script, and that was just a false narrative, even this short a time afterwards. So who is he working for?
Well, right? I got a question for you, Mike, and just because you're good friends with Doc Pete, do you recall when Doc Pete and Todd Callender did a presentation for the government of Croatia over the things that get here? And do you recall that they were never invited to speak in front of the Croatian government again? Do you know why?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now, I guess that's that question.
Well, the reason why is this. So this is a chart that Todd Callender and Doc Pete put together showing basically this is what the power structure looks like, right? And it all, like they say, follow the money, it'll take you back. So, or, take you to whoever's in charge. So basically everything in that policymakers realm could be referred to as the Committee of 300. We've discussed that before. So John Brennan actually would be a policy enforcer. And then Obama and everybody below him reporting up through him to the globalist masters. But I've shared this a few times in the past. Every time I share it, I think to myself, man, I wonder if the AI at YouTube's actually going to read it and smoke us for it, because they love to hit us. But regardless, Jeff, is there anything you'd like to add with regards to that video clip?
Yeah, first of all, look at who he was sitting with when he made those statements. It was true at the very beginning. Everybody knew it. I mean, what they were spouting was a falsehood at the very beginning. They knew it. It ended up getting proven later on. And then on top of all that, my question would be who is the president now? I'm going to follow up with Mike a little bit. Who is the president now? We haven't had a president in quite some time. We know it's not Kamala. We know it's not Joe. Who is the president now? And if we're going to get beat up for this by any shadowy organization, then they're going to have to beat up on everybody in the United States, because I promise you, I'm not that smart. And if I'm thinking this, that means about 349,999,000 people are thinking the same thing. And that's on both sides of the aisle. So if Brennan is just a cog in the wheel, then he's probably still pulling some of the strings. But I'm like Mike on this. I mean, who is he working for? Who does he answer to? And you remember back in the 80s when Reagan came out, when he first ran for president, he said he wanted to get rid of wealthy outsiders.
Yes.
I believe that's the way he framed that. But at the same time, George Bush Sr. was a member of the Trilateral Commission. He was also a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. And he was also the head of the CIA before that. Exactly. And there was Reagan caught a lot of flack for bringing him in. And could have been a political decision, I don't know, but he caught a lot of mess for that. And ultimately, you saw what happened when Bush Sr. Tried to run for a second term. I mean, that was partly Bill Clinton, but that was partly no new taxes. Listen to the words I'm saying. No new taxes.
Yeah.
But they both of those guys rode the 12-year wave of Reaganomics and how they influenced the economy. Because if you recall, he took office in 81. And the economy didn't make the big turnaround until 83. And then it really turned around. And when it did, and entrepreneurship was up, there's a lot of things. I mean, I was working at the time. I was a kid, but I was working and noticed a lot of things. And those the standard of living from that point on, from what we went to from the 70s into the 80s, was amazing. And it crossed ethnic boundaries. A lot of people prospered from that. I think there was the highest, at that point in time, there was the highest level of Black entrepreneurship that had been in the United States in the history of the country. And so everybody prospered. And later on, Reagan said he had his regrets, but that engine that he created that plowed through at least the first 4 years of Bill Clinton's administration. And then when it started to go down, then you had you had the contract with America and Newt Gingrich to keep him in check. And they still prosper. They continue to prosper. So, I mean, I could go on about that. I was lucky enough to live through that. And actually, in hindsight, I can look back and see it. But there were these factors that exist today that we're so ably made aware of by the media. You put that cat box in there too, because they're not free of blame at all. But look at the amount of information we take in over a 24-hour period of time. It's amazing. And I know people right now, Chris, that sit and watch that TV 24 hours a day. I got other stuff to do. I can't do that. It's not it doesn't really work for me like that. But it's scary.
Yeah, it is. And so, Jeff, I'm going to Bluetooth you to a little speaker here so we can get the volume up just a bit. Or at least that was my plan, but I think maybe the battery died, so we'll nix that plan. Anyway, this is a good comment here. He agrees with you, 11 CCOM. If one can figure out who Brennan is working for, it would be easy to turn off the switch. So we know that it goes back to, the globalist NWO cabal, but who is he directly taking orders from? I haven't seen anybody even posit a theory on that. If I was to guess, I would say Rockefellers and Alex Soros would be my first two guesses, but that's just that's a guess on my part. I'm not saying that it's actually them. So let's move on to the next one here. All right, here we go.
Strong man. Sometimes you need a strong man. He's a strong man. They said he called President Xi brilliant. Well, he's a brilliant guy. He controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, whether you like it or not. And they go crazy.
Right.
Say,
it doesn't mean he's not evil, or it doesn't mean he's not
yeah, of course not.
dangerous.
But actually, we have evil people in our country.
That Rogan clip, Director Brennan, is so reminiscent of an interview that Trump did with Joe Scarborough and the guy at Fox, O'Reilly, where he's questioning him about Putin, and he says, you know, Joe did and O'Reilly did, but, you know, but he kills people, he kills journalists, and Trump defiantly says, we kill people too, and you know, good on Mr. Rogan there to say it doesn't mean he's not dangerous, it doesn't mean he's not evil, and Trump sees no difference between the brutality in an autocracy and what his role will be as president. What signal does that send to you, Director Brennan?
It sends the signal that Donald Trump is most impressed by ruthless strength and wealth. And if you look at the people that he associates with and speaks highly of, whether it be Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping or Viktor Orban, these are individuals who have been able to manipulate the politics and the system within their countries in order to suppress any opposition and to be the authoritarian leader that I think Donald Trump wants to be. Also, Elon Musk being the wealthiest person in the world, this is something that Donald Trump salivates over and wants to have a person like Elon Musk very much associated and affiliated with the administration. You know, when Donald Trump was elected in 2016, I was hoping that he was going to grow into the role of the presidency. In fact, I told the CIA workforce, you know, that once he assumes the responsibilities of the presidency, that he's going to recognize just how important that role is. And his first term was a serious disappointment in that regard. And unfortunately, I think we have a track record here. And now this second term, he's limited supposedly by the Constitution, by the law, into only 2 terms, that he is going to, I think, try to do as much as he can in order to be the disruptive leader, the autocratic, authoritarian leader that he wants to be. And so I do think that looking at the years ahead, this is going to be a very turbulent time, not just for U.S. national security and domestic policy, but also for the global landscape in terms of how the U.S. role is evolving and how Russia, China, and others are going to take advantage of that.
So I want to add one comment before I go to you, Mike, and that is yesterday morning, there were supposedly 7 senators who were a hard no on Pete Hegseth to lead the Department of Defense, right? And all of a sudden, mysteriously today, they're all falling in line. And the first piece of news I actually read this morning was that Elon was in DC yesterday, and he met with all kinds of different government officials, mostly on the Department of Government Efficiency. But apparently one of the things that came out is he essentially, you know, hinted at these senators, vote for whoever you want to, but if you don't vote for Pete Hegseth, I'm going to give your competitor $100 million to run against you in the next election. And of course, people lost their freaking minds over it. And I'm not big on the mega money being in our political system. Like the 2010 Supreme Court ruling on Citizens United that said corporations are people and money's free speech. I don't agree with that because they distort the process. But we've had no answer to George Soros for many, many years. And he's been trying to destroy us for many, many years. He's been very successful at chipping away at America. Personally, at least we have an answer now. We've got Elon on our side, and I think that's a pretty big deal. So I just wanted to add that when Brennan was saying, you know, Trump is infatuated with Elon. Well, wouldn't you be? You know, because we can finally defend against them, right? But what do you think specifically of Brennan hinting around that? Once Trump gets back in power, he's never going to leave again. You know, I've always wondered, would they go so far as to say, you know what, we have discovered evidence that the 2020 election's been stolen, and therefore Donald Trump can't be president anymore because he already had his 2 terms.
Right. And then, I mean, the breadcrumbs are there too, right? And number one, I'd like to ask the left, how's it feel now? How does it feel? Were you tactics used against us for a decade or more? So yeah, how's it feel? I love having him on our side, number one. But the breadcrumbs are there. But here's what I'm thinking about this, and I have to say, man, nothing is unprecedented or precedented until it's unprecedented, right? So here it comes. Nothing's out of the realm of possibility now. If I have learned anything, especially in the last 25 years, there's nothing that would surprise me. A coup wouldn't surprise me. An uprising wouldn't surprise me. Just anything. After 9/11, nothing surprises me whatsoever. And the deeper I get and dig into politicians and people at the top end of this country that run this thing, absolutely nothing surprises me whatsoever. So I think the breadcrumbs are there. I don't know what this party would do, but it's always a tit for tat, and it's always back and forth. It's just who has the power, who's willing to use it, and who's willing to set the precedent. And I think possibly this president has got the huevos to maybe attempt something like that, but we'll see.
Well, towards the end of this episode, I've got a couple articles and memes essentially that cover this pardon that Biden gave his son. And now there's a whole bunch of people lining up, Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, Kissinger, essentially saying to Joe Biden, you need to give us a preemptive pardon. Man, they're really opening Pandora's box here, because that means the president can get in office on the 20th, January 20th, do whatever he wants for 4 years, pardon himself and all of the people around himself, and get away with it. This is a really dangerous precedent. Speaking of precedents, Jeff, I got you Bluetooth to a speaker, so the volume should be a little bit better now. Give me your thoughts on, again, you got to give Brennan credit. He's very articulate, very well spoken, and he knows his BS like the back of his hand.
So I come from the land of common sense, and if you look at everything that Brennan said, that's just the pot calling the kettle black. Those guys have screwed up so much stuff. You take the first day that Biden was in office. Did he know what he was signing out of legislation through his executive powers? Did he even know? Was there anything even written on those pieces of paper? Nobody knows if there was or not. He was signing away everything that had brought the economy up and brought it up to the level that it was. And you're going to sign those back the other way, because for some reason that's not a good thing. I think the other thing about that is with your thought about Trump winning the decision of the 2020 election and getting kicked out of office. It ain't got to deal with JD. Are you kidding me? Is that really something they want to happen? Because I'll be honest with you, if I believe that JD is a little, as far as being a conservative, is pretty much to the right of Donald. Well, it wouldn't take much to be right of Donald from a lot of perspectives. He's not a conservative. He's conservative, but if they want JD in there, I'd be happy with that. No problem at all.
So just for the heck of it, let me play devil's advocate here. So before Trump chose his running mate, my position is that Trump needed to do the same thing that the Democrats did in 2020 and pick a running mate like Kamala that's so toxic that nobody in their right mind would want to take Joe Biden out and put Kamala Harris in. So in that vein, Mike, you'll understand me on this one. I honestly think that Doc Pete would have been a better choice as VP than JD Vance for a couple very specific reasons. JD Vance's entire income, finances, etc., come from Big Pharma. And Big Pharma is the biggest lobby group in DC. They make the military industrial complex look like a little guy. And I'm not saying that he's done anything wrong, but it makes me wonder, when somebody's got all those eggs in one basket, are they truly incorruptible is my concern. So that's why I say, if you take somebody like Doc Pete, who is 100% incorruptible, then I think that would have taken the incentive to assassinate Donald Trump to a much lower level. But that's kind of a side note. I don't know how much of that you caught, Jeff, but basically,
I caught it all. That was very good.
Okay.
That was very good. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just throwing it out there, and obviously I'm biased towards Doc Pete. I mean, he's the most patriotic man I've ever known. I'll tell you, Jeff, something that he said. So on Veterans Day, I sent him a text and just said, thank you for everything, you've done, because he's tireless. After 39 years in the military, he ends up on the border with his dog and one of his horses, observing the cartels, dropping fentanyl from drones, observing them bringing illegals across the border. And he's relaying that information back to Texas DPS. So I texted Doc. I said, I appreciate everything you do. He responded in a way that I've never heard before, that really tells you everything you need to know about Doc Pete. It was 3 words: you're worth it. You are worth it. You're worth it. I mean, that was a pretty badass response, I thought, and that's typical Doc Pete. But I see we've lost Mike Hall. If he doesn't get logged back on here in a minute, I might patch him into the phone call, and we'll just do both of you by call. So let me pull up the next one here. So this is a cover of the New York Post. Spies who lie. The intelligence experts who falsely discredited Hunter Biden's laptop and still won't say sorry. I mean, and this is current, okay? And I'm not sure how people arrive at their numbers. There's obviously a lot of extrapolation, but I've heard estimates that the lies with regards to Hunter Biden's laptop in the 2020 election cycle, so the 51 intel agents, or agents of chaos, really, and the mainstream media, I've seen estimates that it swayed somewhere between 6 and 10 million votes. And maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but it certainly had some effect on the election. I'm kind of hoping, Jeff, that we go after these guys for election interference, regardless whether it's 1 million, 6 million, or 10 million. Because if we don't end up with any accountability for all of this stuff, then exposing it accomplished nothing in my mind. I mean, what are your thoughts towards the 51 people who lied through their teeth?
I totally agree with that. It wouldn't, like, if there were something that you and I were going to get in trouble for as regular people, we would be held to every letter of the law, A through Z. But yet, it seems like the people that are involved in those sort of activities, they get promotions.
Yeah.
There's no repercussion. They get promotions. They get promoted. How is that supposed to work? And I don't know if it's loyalty to a party line or an ideological line, but whatever the case is, you're familiar with Thomas Sowell, I'm sure. Thomas Sowell had a book about intelligent people. I can't think of the name of the book right now. It was about, but he said that every major thing that's gone wrong economically and politically has had the letters YALE or HARBARD at the end of it. And so intellect and IQ don't necessarily put you in the right. And the fact these guys can do it exactly what you said, Chris, they do it, and they're going to get away with it. And I fear, one of my fears is that they won't be held accountable.
Yeah, I agree. It concerns me as well, but I'm hoping that we finally got, a team in there that's going to do something about it. So Jeff Nicholas is going to join us here. Just got to send him a quick link, and then I'm going to give Mike Hall a call in a minute. If he doesn't jump back on, we'll patch him in by phone. So we'll move on to the next one here and just get pulled up. All right. John Brennan is openly admitting to treason on mainstream media, exclaiming that President Trump will be withheld security briefings when he's confirmed nominee this summer. So this is going back before we got into the full swing of the election cycle. And what he was basically saying is that candidates for the office start to get intel briefings in advance so they can hit the ground running if and when they're declared the winner of the election, right? And what John Brennan suggests in this video is absolutely against the law.
I have to start with the news today with you, Director Brennan, that some version of our intelligence analysis will, there's a plan for Trump to start getting that while he's under criminal prosecution for mishandling classified documents. Will you explain what this is and what you think is likely to happen?
Yeah, Nicole, it's somewhat surreal that an individual who is under indictment for mishandling classified information is going to be getting classified intelligence briefings. But this traditionally is provided to the candidates for president by the sitting president. And so therefore, I think it makes sense for the Biden administration to offer that to Donald Trump. Now, I'm pretty certain that my former intelligence colleagues will provide briefings that are not going to do any type of damage to sources and methods in terms of providing information to Donald Trump that he could misuse. But they will provide analytic overviews and briefings about some of the world's hotspots, letting Donald Trump know what the assessments are at this point. So I think it's going to be analysis that will be devoid of the sources and methods, the sensitive things that we are most concerned about, the types of things that were in all those documents that he had in the bathroom and other areas in Mar-a-Lago. But I do think it makes sense. Now, it's a question about whether or not Donald Trump will accept the briefings. And I'm sure that if he does accept them, he probably will disparage them, as he has disparaged U.S. intelligence officers as well as U.S. intelligence itself for so long, over so many years.
All right. So you got a good audio now, Mike?
I think so. It keeps going in between SOS mode, and I'm telling you.
Yeah, you sound a little bit clear. So right below you, we've got my good friend, Jeff Nicholas, 20 years and 1 week in the Army, Chief Warrant Officer, level 4, a Black Hawk pilot, Night Stalker 160, and the guy behind Compliant Technologies, which make these crazy gloves, Jeff Caps, that is, that when you get touched with the gloves, you hit the deck. It's like that. He's done it to me. So Jeff Caps, Jeff Nicholas, Jeff Caps. Jeff is
nice to meet you, brother.
He's
nice to see you, Mike.
Hey, brother.
See you. Jeff Caps is like a Tony Blauer kind of guy, all the self-defense stuff, martial arts, and he's good friends with Mike Hall. So anyway, we've been going through all these different videos and articles, Jeff, on John Brennan essentially being, the guy, right? And Patrick Byrne was the one who put us onto that, the former CEO of Overstock, and he was a Senate Intelligence asset for Senate Intelligence Committee asset for many years. And I think it's pretty much anybody who's paying attention can see that John Brennan is the one who's been calling the shots. So that video that I just played, this was earlier in the election cycle, and John Brennan was essentially saying that the security briefs that candidates would normally get were going to be, kind of cleansed of any really important information before they were given to Donald Trump because he poses such a risk. And I mean, that's against the law. And who is he anyway? He's not even, he entered the CIA in 1980. He left when Obama left because he was head of the CIA at that point in time. Let's just get your thoughts, Jeff Nicholas, first and foremost on, do you think John Brennan is the guy who reports into the NWO, the globalists, or am I just crazy for suggesting that?
Well, let's just look at some of his past. While he was the station chief in Saudi Arabia, he became a Muslim. And you know that I believe he's got really big ties with the Muslim Brotherhood. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think him and Obama are kind of like that. And I think they orchestrated the whole thing with Donald Trump and Russiagate and You know, the laptop thing was devised by him. You know, birds of a feather flock together. The guy is crooked. It's amazing to me how you know he's lying just based upon vetted information from the past, and with the fact that you have 51 intel analysts that knowingly signed a document that was false. So I wouldn't trust the intel either. And Ratcliffe came out and it said that, you know, we had foreign interference in our election. That was the intel report. And yet you had the, what is it called? CISA or whatever it is that came out and said, this is the safest election that we've ever had. This is the best, most secure election we've ever had. The lies upon lies. And from what I understand now, Trump and his transition team is not using the communication devices that are normally supplied. They're not taking the intel briefs. They're not doing anything. They're doing everything atypical, and they don't know what they're doing. And it's driving them nuts. And I love it. So, you know, I think these cats, man, I hope and pray that God deals with them. I know ultimately there's a final judgment. I would like to see human judgment at some point carry things out. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I still got you, Jeff. And I agree. There's one more connection between Brennan and Obama that's pretty important. So Obama made no secret of the fact that he was a big fan of Saul Alinsky's, 11 steps to convert America into a socialist / communist state. And he got the ball rolling on all of those action items. 1976, John Brennan voted for Gus Hall, who was the American Communist Party candidate for president. So he didn't vote for Jimmy Carter, and he didn't vote for Gerald Ford. And he made no bones about it early on that he was a really big fan of socialism, Marxism, communism. And so I don't think he's ever had any compunctions as far as working to basically screw our country, in my mind.
What I don't understand, and you know, someone educate me on this. And one other side note: don't forget about Clapper. He's in that mix there as well.
Yes,
he's right up there with Brennan.
Good point.
How is it that someone can run for office that has a worldview and a political agenda that is the antithesis of the U.S. Constitution? Because how would you ever take office swearing to defend the Constitution of the United States if you don't believe in it and you act contrary to it? I don't think you should be allowed to run for office if you're a known socialist or a communist, because it's the whole round peg in a square hole type of thing. And I know the Bible says where your treasure is, there is where your heart is as well. Their heart is not with this country. It's not with the American people. It's not with the rule of law. It's about control. It's about authoritarianism, and it's about everything, like I said, that's the antithesis of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So for anybody who's new to Survival Dispatch News, I'll just give you the Cliff Notes version. Todd Callender's research team was the beginning of the discovery of all the public officials who don't have valid oaths of office.
Yeah.
36 of the current cabinet members served in one of Obama's previous cabinets, and not one current member, and not ever since this Biden admin was installed has there been anybody with a valid oath of office. So when Todd's team started uncovering this, I'm not an attorney. I said to Todd, I said, well, what does that mean? And I've got a 60 some odd page document full of all the FOIAs. And he basically said, he showed me things like Mayorkas, born in Cuba, dual citizen between Israel and America. And his oath of office got sent in with no signature, and it wasn't notarized. So it's not a valid oath of office. And they all have defects, Merrick Garland, all of them in one capacity or another. So I said to Todd, okay, but what does that mean in practical terms? And he said, if you are a government official and you get charged and convicted of treason, the maximum penalty is death. If you are a government official and you do not have a valid oath of office, you're an imposter. And the maximum penalty for pretending to be a government official is 5 years. So they were basically mitigating their risk against, Donald Trump getting back in or somebody else. Go ahead, Jeff.
So if you say that, I disagree. I don't think that's what's going to happen. They can think that, and someone probably told them that Kool-Aid. There's 4 reasons. 1, fraud vitiates everything. 2, knowingly, right? And I forgot the other 2 because I'm a geezer already. One is a RICO, right? And then you have collusion. And you have people colluding together to do this as a group. This isn't a one-off. If you have 37 cabinet members or you have 37 officials that have invalid oath of office, this was collusion and corruption and RICO and all the other kind of things, because you could stack that stuff on there. There's no way in the world, if this is just my opinion, I'm not anywhere near an attorney, but these are just different things I've read. And if you add it all up together, these guys cannot get away with that, because if they do, then I don't care what you say and who comes into office, we still don't have the rule of law. We still don't have law under the Constitution. We don't have a country if these people don't pay the price for what they've done. And I think then, and you're talking that from a civil standpoint, but what if we said they all colluded and they were enemies from within, like foreign invaders? They can then be tried with military tribunals, I believe. So that's a 5th wicket, that an avenue we could probably go down, and they can live the rest of their life in Guantanamo Bay, as far as I'm concerned. But they really should hang from a gallows and be shark bait out there in the state and Caribbean.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Gerald Phillips, former law enforcement officer, good friend of mine, from U.S. Arms Company. The intelligence matrix is not for the American people. That's a mouthful right there. So, question for Jeff Capps, and then same question for you, Mike Hall. Does your gut tell you that these anti-American, treasonous, seditious SOBs are going to pay a price, or do you think they skate on all this stuff? Jeff Capps first.
Personally, I think they're going to skate. Some of them, the low-hanging fruit will get gotten, and they'll do something to them. But the people at the top are worried about what the lower-end people know, and so that's creating a vicious cycle back at the top that you don't want to get back. The split soldier knows something the capo doesn't know, and the capo's got to go to the boss, and then they insulate themselves. The people at the top insulate themselves very well, and Brennan sure did. But I don't live in the world that believes they're going to get punished, even though I believe, like Jeff said, I believe they should absolutely get punished for that. I just don't think it's going to happen. And so there needs to be another way to deal with them, provided that criteria is not met. There needs to be another way to deal with them. Like, I think, didn't they take away Trump took away Brennan's security clearance?
You're right. Yes, you're right.
I mean, so there's ways to hurt these people without physically putting them in jail, or I don't think anything's too good for them or too bad for them. But there's ways to hurt these people, and we see it all the time. They do it to regular people all the time. They hurt the regular folks all the time, and I think those. I absolutely believe we should have in mind that is something we want to do. We want them to suffer to some extent the way the regular people, the American people, suffer every day, whether it's high interest rates, taxes, inflation, which is nothing but a tax anyway, any of those things. And I believe there should be some repercussions for what they've done.
Yeah, it's not retribution, it's accountability at the end of the day. And if they're not held accountable, then there's no incentive for them to change their ways at all.
Yes, sir.
Jeff Nicholas, do you have something you want to throw in before I go to Mike?
Well, I just wanted to say it goes beyond all the economic. You look at the shutdowns. Look at the people that committed suicide. Look at the kids that are way behind in school because of shutdowns and the mental. Look at the whole transgenderism and how they push that, and these ideologies and these things to divide us as a nation. Millions of people have died from these shots, and that was a friggin' pandemic it was a bioweapon. You can ask that Dr. Michael Yeaton, who used to be vice president in charge of all release of new drugs for Pfizer, testified to the British Parliament. This was none other than a bioweapon designed to cull the population. That's coming from the ex-Pfizer drug vice president that pushed all new stuff out. More and more doctors are saying this. There's a boatload of other doctors that testify to that. These people have committed treason. They've committed genocide, and they have raped and pillaged our country and our people to the point where we are a destitute nation and so broke. We're a shell of a country economically, what we were.
Yeah, that's true. Careful with this stuff. We keep getting strikes from YouTube, and they stick with you for 90 days. Of course, they're still not.
Oh, I thought we weren't on YouTube. I thought we were doing the Steam.
We're on everything right now. We're on
okay. Well,
7 different platforms, but it's okay. Hopefully
someone just reached in and slapped my hand.
It's all good. Hopefully we don't get smacked down for. I'm going to try and call Mike Hall since he's having problems. So Jeff Capps, I'm not losing you here. I'm going to patch you in. So we'll give him a second here.
Call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system 90.
Well, can you hear me now, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, it went straight to his voicemail, so he's definitely having connectivity issues. So we'll move on to the next one here. We've only a couple more in this first chapter as far as establishing that John Brennan is, for all intents and purposes, an enemy of the state. So the New York Times disclosed yesterday that the CIA built 12 secret spy bases in Ukraine, waging a shadow war against Russia for the past decade. This goes all the way back to John Brennan going to the Ukraine in April 2014, and then all these clandestine operations against Russia began, which makes it even more ironic that they would, 2 years after that, start accusing Donald Trump of being a Russian asset.
Various people have said that John Brennan, the head of the CIA, traveled possibly under another name to Kyiv, and I just wanted to know, did he travel there? Does it have anything to do with this action?
No, it happened only in some commands from Moscow. I don't know. So,
thank you.
Were you in Kiev recently?
I was in Kiev a couple weeks ago. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell us what your mission was?
I was out there to interact with our Ukrainian partners and friends.
Ukraine's acting president has announced the start of an anti-terrorist operation in the east of the country.
Today was the day Kiev sent in troops to try to wrest back control of the east.
Я встречался с теми людьми, которые стоят на улице. О чем люди говорят? Люди хотят 2 государственных языка. Люди хотят федерализации. Сегодня призывают отправить армию. Сегодня призывают зачистить эти территории. Сегодня называют своих граждан террористами. Для чего? Я действительно считаю, что у нас есть возможность сохранить страну. Но для этого нужно остановить эскалацию.
So I'm going to stop this video there. For anybody who wants to watch the whole video, just go to patreon.com/survivaldispatch, sign up for free. You can download the same brief that we're using to conduct this episode. And we do that for every episode for free. Jeff Capps, your thoughts on Ukraine as far as our relationship with Ukraine and how that plays into things like, I was going to say rumored money laundering, but I think it's been shown that it's pretty legit. Like one of the things in the Hunter Biden laptop is it showed all of the money being transferred, from Ukraine to somebody in the Biden family, to somebody else in the Biden family, to somebody else in the Biden family. And each time it passed through somebody's hands, they would take like 10% off, that sort of thing. But just give me your thoughts on the Ukraine thing. I think it's the biggest money laundering operation since the breakup of the USSR.
as far as the war in Ukraine goes, that's a pretty complicated deal because they became a country in '91, and so they became an independent country in '91, and it hasn't been smooth sailing for them. They have not that many people, and it's a very corrupt place. And you remember the Joe getting on the plane and saying, "Hey, you better get that money, or I'm taking $1 billion," whatever it was he said on the plane.
Yeah.
And basically threatened them. And I mean, if that's not proof that there's some BS going on, I don't know what is. But that's a very complicated situation, and I'm kind of torn between our involvement at all. You hear the argument all the time that, well, we got to help them be free, and yeah, I guess so. But personally, I would prefer to see humanitarian aid above all else, and then a negotiated peace. I think that if we wanted to talk about the military-industrial complex and the people that are pushing that narrative for the sake of this whole conversation that we're having tonight, is that a negotiated settlement, the sooner the better, because a lot of people are dying. Nobody wants to see that their infrastructure has been devastated. So somebody's got to rebuild that. Where is that going to come from? So it's a shame that when you look at and see what's happened with regard to transfer money like Burism and things like that, if you can look at that and you can say, nope, you know what? I don't think there's anything going on. Then, man, I don't know what to say to you, because that has been a scam from the get-go. And so it's a little frustrating. I mean, what to put my opinion to that, I would say, now that is a boondoggle of the utmost proportions.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Jeff Nicholas, I mean, what are your high-level thoughts on Ukraine?
It's become the most corrupt country in the world, and when you talk about, be with Ukraine, and that's being advertised by Hillary Clinton and George Soros and stinking Kerry and Bill Gates and all the crowds, something's got to be wrong with that. I know that it's the largest or the most corrupt country in the world. It's got a lot of it's the biggest money launderer, human trafficker, organ trafficker. You have all these children of these people, Pelosi's son or relative or something, John Kerry, Mitt Romney. They all had kids that were on these boards of these companies over in Ukraine after they helped take it down through the Orange Revolution. And I forget the name of that lady who was the ambassador behind that helped do all that behind the scenes. She's an evil wench. So, Hunter Biden was also with companies that helped set up the biolabs. So one of the reasons Russia went in there is because of the fact that we had 43 to 53 biolabs that was set up in that country, and Putin kept saying behind the scenes, get those biolabs off the border. So when you find out that through the virus not to be named was started in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, moved to the lab overseas where we know it all released out. There was something about the sensitization and the aid in releasing it coming from the biolabs out of Ukraine. So I'd be interested to find out how that's all connected and what really happened there. But this country, they need to start over. It's corrupt. They're all broken from within. They're taking people of all ages. Now I think they're taking them down to 16 or 18 and putting them on the front lines. I think the average Ukrainian soldier lasts 4 hours on the line. It's nothing but a meat grinder, and they've lost more people. They lost that war on day one. Don't let anybody say anything otherwise. They lost it on day one. You don't go in. If Russia wanted to, if it was truly an invasion, they would have led with cruise missiles, airstrikes, artillery, tanks, and then moved the troops in, and they would have just rolled in there. It was very surgical how they went about doing it in order to prevent loss of life. And I have no idea who, Vladimir Putin is not one of the good guys, right? But he's also not any worse than Zelensky and all the other people that are running Ukraine and killing their population willy-nilly. And then with us in there doing our thing to the deep state, it's just, they're trying to escalate to get into World War III. They want that to be the powder keg. They're doing everything in their power to get Vladimir Putin to light off a war so they could use an excuse to launch missiles and possibly a nuke. They're just waiting for an opportunity, and they're trying to create it. And right now, I think Putin has shown great restraint because he's had foreign countries' weapons attacking deep into his soil. And again, I'm not a Russophile, but I also understand the dynamics behind a corrupt country like Ukraine.
Yeah, well said. The only comment that I would add to all of that is there are significant eastern portions of Ukraine that have been Russian forever and ever and ever. The people speak Russian. They consider themselves Russian. And that's what Putin has been going after, right? I mean, when Tucker Carlson met with Putin, Tucker Carlson was upset because Putin gave him a 1-hour lecture on the history of Russia and pointing out, how the Crimea Peninsula, for example, that's Russia. That's not Ukraine. So I personally think that what happens here is that it gets shut down. There's some concessions made to Russia, and that NATO does not bring Ukraine in because that's guaranteed war forever and ever. So I think Zelensky and the rest of the people on his side are going to have to deal with the fact, like you said, they lost on day one, and it's coming to an end. And those sections that say they're Russian are going back to Russia. And too bad, so sad.
So I think Putin's going to end up owning. I think Russia's going to end up owning most of what we know as Ukraine right now.
Possibly, I would say at the very, very least, those core, historical Russian places for sure. Yeah. So essentially, the first chapter tonight, which we're almost done. I've just got a couple things left to share. Was essentially to establish the fact that, number one, that John Brennan is the puppet master in control of Obama, who's been the puppet master controlling, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, et cetera, et cetera. And the other part to that is the connection between the CIA and all of our government. And not everybody's aware of this next thing that I'm going to bring up. We've mentioned it, I think, on one other episode. There is a ton of evidence that Google is a CIA asset and was started by the CIA. So all of these links are in the brief for tonight's episode. So this is the first one is a fairly quick article if you want to get the 10,000 foot view. That's how long the 10,000 foot view is. But moving to the next article that I included in the brief, and this is on Medium. Watch when I scroll it down. 49-minute read. Look at the sidebar over here, how small it is. This article dumps an incredible amount of information on how the CIA was funded, Google was funded by the CIA, and how to this day they continue to control it. And I'm maybe 60% of the way through at that point. So the gist of it is that Google was started and has executed the mission to essentially do what Stalin used to say: if you control the news, you control the information, you won. You control everything. And I mean, how many people have you seen these days? Actually, let me back up for a second. There used to be an old adage that I feel was very accurate, and it said, a sign of intelligence is not your education or the sum total of everything that you know, but it's your ability to find the answers to stuff, right? And this is pre-Google. Now I would say that adage doesn't have any weight whatsoever, because there's tons of people who go to Google, they read the first result, and then they swear that's the fact, right? And when we know that 90% of clicks on Google happen above the fold, that means the bottom of the window, 90% of the time somebody clicks something from the bottom of your display to the top of your display. People don't scroll down, right? 10%. So when you take information and you suppress it or you hide it on the 5th or 6th page, and you also mess with the autocomplete. What happened on July 13th? And when you punch that in, I don't know if they've updated or not. They hadn't as of a few days ago when I checked it. Tells you all sorts of historical things that have happened on July 13th over the years, but doesn't say a word on the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. And
right.
In between the first and second assassination attempt, if you punched in anything like, Donald Trump assassination attempt, it wouldn't autocomplete anything and it wouldn't bring anything up. What it would bring up was Christopher Wray's testimony in front of Congress 2 weeks after it happened, saying that Donald Trump was not shot and that it was essentially debris from the teleprompter or a railing that was close by. Well, there's lots of video of the teleprompters. Not one of them had any damage to it. And there was no handrail in close proximity to it. And that was on a Wednesday. And on Friday, the FBI quietly sent a letter out to the mainstream media saying that Director Wray misspoke and that Donald Trump was indeed shot. But they got their headline. And that's what they wanted, right? Because they knew if they got the headline, then they knew that their followers would memorize, regurgitate.
It's not working, though. It didn't work.
No, we could literally talk 7 days a week, probably for 6 months, covering nothing but examples of things that Google has done that are downright evil. That was their initial, mantra, right? Don't be evil. Extremely evil corporation. And the fact that it was funded by, bootstrapped, and continue to be supported by the CIA. They do the CIA's bidding, right? When the CIA says we don't want people to think X, make sure they get story Y. That's what happens. I've been preaching to people for a long time. Google will make you stupid. Don't go to Google when you're looking for information because you're getting fed a false narrative. Ironically enough, the best search engine today, bar none, is Yandex.com, Yandex.com. It's a Russian search engine, and you wouldn't believe the difference. And if you punch stuff in, like if you ask Google questions around the civil unrest that happened around the George Floyd timeframe, you'll get that whole narrative, right? When you do it on Yandex, you don't get the same narrative. And the second to that would be search.brave.com, Brave web browser. They have a search engine as well that's pretty darn good. My litmus test for search engines is if I go to a search engine and I say to it, can men get pregnant? And it comes back and says yes, then that search engine isn't worth a shit. It's giving you bullshit information, false narrative. So Jeff Capps, I'll go to you first this time. Were you aware that Google was bootstrapped by the CIA?
No, sir, not until right now. I've used it just because it seems like the best option to get information, and it's convenient, and I'm a little lazy like that sometimes. And so, but there are other sources like news aggregates tend to give us good information for the most part, but we also pick our side, conservative or liberal. One of the things that I read, I'm a crazy reader, and everybody knows about 1984, and they know about Animal Farm. We read these in high school, and I would suggest a book by Orwell. Other than knowing his life story and what he went through in the Spanish Revolution, I would suggest a book called The Road to Wigan Pier. And the book is about Orwell goes into northern England to the coal mines. And his distinction there is when he kind of lost his love for socialism because he saw the people in the towns he called the tweed-wearing liberals, who were always singing about the downfall of the people in the north and the mines like that. But they weren't really lift a finger to do anything about it. And but it wasn't so much as that, but the experience he went through in his journey to Wigan Pier, to living with those people, and the horrible circumstances they lived under. And keep in mind, this is probably the 30s or the 40s, so the world's a very different place back then. But But from an overall standpoint, The Road to William Peter was probably one of the best books I've ever read. And Orwell, And Orwell is, there's a lot more to him than 1984. But yet we see ourselves living in that time. We see ourselves living in 1984. We see ourselves looking at Animal Farm, and we're experiencing those things as we speak. Pravda, yeah, right. Pravda, the truth, right? Okay. There's your example. You made that earlier. You know, with regard to Ukraine, the one time it was a breadbasket of Europe, and it was the breadbasket of that whole continent. And during the Holodomor, millions of people died because of starvation, partly because the industrialization that was kind of to a degree forced on them by Stalin. But people starved to death, and they were murdered on the street for stealing a seed. People resorted to cannibalism. The Holodomor was a horrific time, and we pray to God that we do not see those times come again, because of not necessarily the EU, but the WE. You know what I'm trying to say, right?
World Economic Forum.
They get their, pardon me?
World Economic Forum.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If they get their way, the first thing you have is you have starvation, then you have pestilence, and you have war. It's happened throughout history, and if they get their way, and those are unelected bureaucrats, by the way, if they get their way, we're going to see that happen again. And I don't want to keep on talking, but take too much time. But if you look at Sweden, I believe it's one of the major agricultural centers of that area, and they're next to the United States. I believe they're second in the world in agricultural production, and they're trying to take away their cattle, their fertilizer, their fuels, natural gas that makes those things. Think of what's going to happen to the subcontinent. Let's take Africa and sub-Saharan part of Africa. If those nutritional agricultural needs are not met, and it's going to throw everything into look what happened in Zimbabwe when it was Rhodesia. Look at how when those farmers were killed and run off their land. Look how that country went in the gutter, and they haven't recovered. I don't know how long it would take them to recover. That's just a small example. So anyway, I'm done. You get me started talking, I'll keep talking. And I really love history. And you guys are pretty amazing. And Jeff, I appreciate getting the chance to listen to you. I'm probably over my head here with you guys as far as brightness goes.
No, not at all. You're in good company with me. Jeff's smarter than me, but I
always have to remind everybody I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed.
That's typical Jeff Nicholas being humble. But so I see HTG, one of our followers, just went to Google and is getting some information on July 13th regarding Donald Trump. So this article is November 15th, so not even a month ago. And last time I checked 2 weeks ago, it still hadn't been fixed. So it must have been fixed in like the past couple weeks. And essentially, when you did anything with regards to July 13th, what happened on July 13th? These were all the autocomplete features, not one word said about Donald Trump. And they're under immense pressure right now, right? Donald Trump has announced that he's going after Google for election interference, and he's going after Google executives for election interference, criminal and civil. Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General of Missouri, the guy's a rock star. We've had him on Survival Dispatch News. He's going after all of the big tech executives with criminal charges that he feels they will be compelled to defend themselves in the state of Missouri. So essentially, if this is now showing up properly on Google, that comes from the pressure that's being placed on them. They were also ordered a couple weeks ago to divest themselves of the Chrome web browser because they're using it to have an antitrust level of advantage over their competitors when it comes to advertising. And that's absolutely true. So, big tech, they're not the friend of America. We've actually been talking about this recently on SDN, as far as somewhere around 70% of workers in high tech and keep in mind that's the industry I come from, are now H-1B visa holders. And I can tell you straight up that before I exited that part of my career, that these people hate America. They hate America. They hate American values, and they would love nothing more than to see our country destroyed. And that's why even when Elon came along and bought X, God bless him, because he saw that, we were losing free speech. But the fact of the matter is, there is a shit ton of code under the hood at X that is still very woke in nature. Before you came on, Jeff Nicholas, I mentioned I've been suspended by Twitter 3 times this year. All 3 times was me saying this person needs to be arrested, tried, and convicted of treason and be subject to the maximum penalty for that. 3 times I've been suspended on X because I was fomenting violence, But some fat ass, purple haired, liberal lesbian can say, I hope the next shooter's more accurate, so they spread Trump's brains all over the place. And that's not
fomenting. Kathy Griffin and hold a decapitated head of Donald Trump up in a picture, right? The hypocrisy is amazing. I just want to comment on the tech thing real quick.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
The Google, I wouldn't be surprised. I knew about that. The one I knew for sure was Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
The day Facebook stood up, the CIA program called LifeLog turned down. And that was set up, and Zuckerberg's background and the people in his past, I'd love to know more about that guy. There's some closet stuff I'd like to be aware of. But, the idea behind these social media giants and the government and the propagandists behind them and the intelligence apparatus, what better way to get intel from people and where you can come up with algorithms about behavior and everything else? Why not just let everybody just spill their guts to you? And they do it, and they think this is this innocent, oh, these are my friends, and we're just talking. There's so much data collected on you, it's absolutely ridiculous. There's data being collected on us right now. I mean, no matter, your phone is listening to you while it sits on your desk. Nothing is sacred anymore. Your privacy is done. They can listen to you through your electrical outlets in your house. So if you think that you have any modicum of privacy, your OnStar is listening to you in your car, or whatever it is your voice activated thing is on your dashboard. If you have a voice activated something in your car, somebody can listen to it. Don't ever think that they're not, unless you go disconnect that satellite antenna from your vehicle. All right. So, yeah, none of that stuff surprised me, and I think these private agencies need to be decapitated from DARPA, from CIA, from NSA, from all of them, and they need to be. I think I heard word in the past about these social media giants becoming regarded like utilities with oversight, and that's probably what needs to happen, because the issue is people don't realize the most valuable commodity, it's not the stupid ads they play, it's not the stupid content of the videos with dogs playing one another in cute animal videos. It's about data. It's nothing but the data. That's the most valuable commodity on these social media and on what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We've actually got some links coming up in chapter 2 that speak to some of the things that you just mentioned. So something else I would add to your comments on stuff spying on you, even a Roomba vacuum cleaner, they have cameras and microphones, and they're taking pictures and sending them off. There's people's privacy has been invaded where they've been, unclothed and so on and so forth. What
do you think they're projecting when you see the commercial and the people are in the control room steering the Roomba vacuum to avoid hitting it? That is projecting,
Right. Yeah. So anyway, the Roomba one, just shows you how egregious that is. So this is the end of chapter 1. So I figured this was a good meme to kind of end on. I'm John Brennan. I swear that I'm a scumbag, liar, and a traitor to my country. Just to put a fine point on it there. So we got a quick message from one of our sponsors, CCW Safe, and we'll be right back.
If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
So just a quick comment, by the way. So last night we had Doc Pete and Major Michael Hall discussing some information surrounding Tom Homan's upcoming mass deportation, okay? And they haven't released all the specifics of it, but there's certainly lots of intel out there now that we need more bodies to pull off these mass deportations. And how are we going to find them? And, one of Tom Homan's ideas is you take the guy who's got a badge and a gun and he's riding a desk to put him out in the field. Mike and Doc Pete didn't think that was a particularly great idea because they're probably not in good shape. They've probably been behind a desk for a long period of time, those sort of things. There's been lots of discussion with sheriffs deputizing people, and there's a bunch of sheriffs in Texas doing it. There's also Butler County, Ohio, Richard Jones. He deputized around 3 dozen civilians earlier this year, spent $125,000 getting them trained, and just deputized another batch. So these are volunteers. Essentially, there's perhaps some logistical work that could be done by our military. There's been some discussion around taking military veterans, former law enforcement officers, and currently licensed armed security guards and having them augment law enforcement, whether it be, the county level or the federal level. And I spoke to one of the guys at CCW Safe today, so I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because our audience has heard this story, but when I acquired Survival Dispatch, they had a relationship with the biggest first company that got into self-defense insurance, okay? And then just totally by fluke, I met up with a couple guys from the second biggest company who's in the self-defense insurance locally here, just happened to bump in, met each other in a restaurant, and they were really decent guys. But I didn't sign up with them as far as Survival Dispatch was concerned. I'm not recommending anything to our audience that hasn't been fully vetted. We get sent tons of products, for example. They never go on the channel because I'm not putting my name on it, and we're not in the business of hurting other people's businesses, which is why I'm trying to avoid naming companies, right? So for 18 months, we essentially didn't recommend anybody for your self-defense coverage. And the reason that we didn't is because of federal law. There's a federal law that says it is against the law for an insurance company to pay you benefits if you broke the law. So we know that over 95% of criminal charges get pled out. So let's say you're in a citizen-involved shooting. You have a George Soros-backed DA. They end up charging you with manslaughter, second-degree murder, whatever. And it gets to the end of the process, and the DA says to your attorney, look, if you have your guy, cop to this lesser charge, we can avoid going to trial. And 95+% of the time, your attorney is going to say to you, don't roll the dice. If we get into court, you could go to jail for decades. All it takes, is a judge who doesn't like you, whatever. So as soon as you sign off on that plea agreement, you just admitted that you broke the law. So if you look into your self-defense insurance, there will be clauses, if it is insurance, that either say recoupment or clawback, meaning that every penny they paid out for your attorney's fees, subject matter experts, expert witnesses, you owe every single penny of that back because you just admitted to breaking the law. CCW Safe doesn't sell you insurance. CCW Safe have a captive insurance policy on their company, insuring them against losses. But when you sign up with CCW Safe, it's member benefits. So there are other coverages out there, just to be clear, that say that you have all the legal representation you'll need, but in the fine print, oh, by the way, you're going to have to pay $50,000 to $250,000 up front for expert witnesses. And until you pay that, we're not going to grant you the legal coverage that's in our policy, and that's in the fine print, right? So at the end of the day, CCW Safe, by far and away the safest way to go. So last night, when I would think it was Mike Hall mentioned it, he said, there's gonna be a call for people who are licensed armed security guards to participate. And that doesn't necessarily mean putting the cuffs on guys, but pretty close to the front line, perhaps at the front line sometimes. So I had a conversation with CCW Safe today, and I said, what happens if somebody, military veteran, former law enforcement officer, armed security guard, decides to go help Tom Homan in these mass deportation efforts, and they're in a citizen involved shooting? Would they be covered? And they wrote back to me and said, if that person is being compensated, they were getting paid for it in any form whatsoever, that CCW Safe would not cover them. But if that person is a volunteer, they would be 100% covered by CCW Safe, just like any other type of citizen involved shooting. So I have a suspicion that if you reach out to some of the other companies who I haven't named and asked, that they wouldn't cover somebody volunteering to help with those types of activities. So just a side note, something that's kind of interesting.
Everywhere I go, I hear nothing but there is no really other option than CCW Safe. That's why I wrote it down, because that's what I'm going to be looking into.
So, Jeff, here's the thing: is that CCW Safe are a Christian-based organization, bunch of good old boys from Oklahoma. And I'll give you an example of their Christian beliefs. So if you sign up with the other guys and you want to include your wife, you have to buy like a family plan. So there is some discount, but I don't recall what the percentage is, so I don't want to name a percentage, but it's not super significant, okay? On the other hand, if you go to CCW Safe and you're married, your spouse automatically gets the same coverage that you get for not a dime extra. So I don't get a discount, by the way. I paid full price for our membership. So they send you a cool challenge coin, a bunch of other stuff. We pay for the ultimate membership, as you can see on the coin. It's $47 a month, and it's got a just amazing number of benefits. But the cool thing is that I don't have to register my wife separately and pay another fee on top of her family plan. She's automatically covered. So, birds of a feather flock together, and I like to support people who share the same values and beliefs that we do. So anyway, that's a not fun CCW Safe. Other than I will say, we had the founder, Mike Darter, on a couple weeks back. We actually got the current president of CCW Safe coming on next Wednesday, or I think it's next Wednesday or Thursday, maybe something like that. So looking forward to speaking with him. So, all right, we're into the next chapter here, which really speaks to corruption. I don't know that we're going to have time to get through everything in the brief because we're getting a little bit long on time here, but Biden family cashed in $20 million from Russian oligarchs and shared accounts. So Hunter Biden's business dealings paint a troubling picture. $4.8 million from a CCP linked firm, $20 million from Russian and Kazakh oligarchs, and over 20 shell companies with no products or services. Email suggests Hunter and Joe Biden shared a bank account, raising serious questions about transparency. Payments from Romanian tycoon Gabriel Papavisu, don't know if I got that one right, and Moscow's ex-mayor add to the scandal, while suspicious sanctions exclusions happened under Biden's administration. I don't know what that's supposed to say, spark outrage. Anyway, with millions accounted for and ties to corrupt foreign entities, it's time for accountability. So this super broad language, I don't know if y'all have read the pardon, but it not only states that Hunter Biden gets a pass on any crimes committed between January 1st, 2014, which barely precedes Burisma, and December 1st, 2024, but in the verbiage, it also says that he is pardoned for any crimes committed against the United States. That's pretty crazy language. So, I mean, now there's this call from all these corrupt people asking Joe Biden to give them a blanket, immunity like that. But when I spoke to Todd Callender on this, and then I'll go to you first, Jeff Nicholas, I said, what are your thoughts on this? Is this legit? Will it hold up? And he said, nope. And I said, why is that? He said, there's no foundation in our law that says you can be forgiven for crimes that may or may not have happened, but there's no specificity whatsoever. So that final catch-all deal, which has never been done before, to say, if he committed any crimes during this period, we're forgiving them. That won't hold up, according to Todd, even if it has to go to the Supreme Court. So what I didn't know is that a plea deal that has a clause that is unconstitutional doesn't just get taken out of the plea deal. The entire plea deal is null and void, which means that Hunter Biden would be subject to all of the stuff that's happened. The other thing right now is, as long as that plea agreement stands, he has given up his Fifth Amendment rights.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody puts him on a stand and asks him to testify on something, he has to testify and hopefully not commit perjury, because that would be a jail sentence, which means if somebody starts asking questions around the money from Burisma, $83,000 a month, that's interesting. That comes out to $1 million a year. How much of that went to the big guy? He has to answer those types of questions. So I think there's a pretty brutal precedent that they've set. And I trust Todd implicitly. I don't think it's going to stand. Jeff Nicholas, what do you think? Is it worth the paper it's written on?
I don't think so. You can't just blanket somebody from crimes against the United States because he was never convicted of a crime against the United States or indicted. So you can't just start pardoning people willy-nilly without having some specificity. I think you have to have been tried, convicted, indicted, the whole shebang. And I think there's some other things morality-wise that you're supposed to demonstrate that show that you're deserving of a pardon. I don't think this is going to fly. Again, I think fraud vitiates, negates all of these things. And I don't think it's, at some point, you got to say enough of the BS. And you can say, well, the law does it, the law does not. Well, you know what? These are times where people have literally trampled the law, and they need to pay the price. I don't think it's gonna stand. And all these people that want other pardons, that would be nice, thinking that it actually meant something. But what do you want a pardon for? Why are you seeking a pardon? You haven't been indicted. What are you afraid of? All that do is signals guilt. And when people start saying those things, that, there you go. I have one weird comment for when this is all done about Brennan and the interview, and I saw what really hit me immediately on his video. I'll save that to last.
Okay. Jeff Capps, what do you think of this plea bargain? Is it going to stick?
I kind of got to go along with you guys and think that you haven't been indicted, you haven't been tried, you haven't been convicted, you haven't been sentenced. So what are you getting pardoned for? And if there's no specific charge being labeled, because in a court of law, even if you get convicted, there's terminology they use, like not convicted when you're acquitted,
right,
with prejudice or without prejudice. With prejudice means you can't be tried for the same thing again, and without prejudice means you can. And I think I don't know what are they pardoning him for? Let's give us some details. I'd like to know. I think they want to keep him, tell him or convince him to keep his mouth shut, because Joe, I just don't believe Joe's going to be with us much longer. If his fall from cohesiveness has been as steep, or is as steep in the next couple of 2 or 3 years as it's been in the last 2 or 3, You guys remember when he debated Mondale's not Mondale, Paul Ryan. He was sharp. He ran Paul Ryan around in circles and probably did him in as far as any useful political efficacy up to that point. He's not that guy, and he has. Did you see the video the other day where he fell asleep in a meeting in Africa, in Angola? This guy's not going to be. They're not worried about him. What they're worried about is the boy keeping his mouth shut, and I think this is to pacify him a little bit. Maybe people are not going to look at it like we're looking at it, and say call the dogs off, and no, nothing to see here. But I agree with you and Jeff that what's he been convicted of? Okay, so they got him off the tax evasion and the gun, but is that all there was? No, that's not. There was a whole lot more.
So I don't recall the numbers, but there are many hundreds of crimes detailed in the data that came off of the Hunter Biden laptop. We covered them. I think it was even last night, where there was a couple hundred underage sex related crimes with his niece, those sort of things. There was a whole bunch of them. But what's interesting is 4 more tabs across my web browser. We actually showed Joe Biden falling asleep in Africa this week, and some comments around that. But this one here, of course, is that crazy lady, Joy Reid, and this goes back 4 years. And listen to what she has to say, and then think of current context where Biden is now considering preemptive pardons, which I mentioned earlier, and one in particular for Adam Schiff.
Barack Obama never had to think about whether he needed to pardon Sasha and Valia, and yet Donald Trump is reportedly discussing pardons for his kids. The presidential pardon was originally meant to grant the president the power.
By the way, never happened. Donald Trump did not pardon any of his kids.
To temper justice with mercy. It was not enshrined in our Constitution so that a dishonorable man could reward his criminal allies, friends, and family for their corrupt practices. Trump is considering preemptive pardons for his adult children. Late last night, we learned that Trump has discussed preemptive pardons for his 3 eldest progeny. The news was first reported by the New York Times. And joining me now is Congressman Adam Schiff of California, Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own.
Keep in mind, this is 2020.
Family. And so there is a self-interest at play as well. It's been essentially a den of thieves environment. And so I think the president used this as his way of trying to protect those that have protected him.
So like I say, we don't need to editorialize this. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, he's just another hypocritical swamp creature. A little bit more on the censorship angle. So Meta's Nick Clegg admits excessive censorship and high error rates in content moderation. So the reason Zuckerberg was at Mar-a-Lago last week was, one, to beg for penance over spending $450 million in the 2020 election on ballot drop boxes, particularly in Wisconsin. That's not a legal thing to do. And it also had a big impact on the cheating that happened in that state. And also to pledge to Donald Trump that he would mimic Elon Musk's moves at X to provide more free speech. And if you read through this article, again, it's in the brief for tonight's episode, patreon.com/survival dispatch. Sign up for a free membership. You can get it. Somewhere in here, he makes a claim that essentially Facebook is trying to walk this line between not censoring information, but also protecting their members at the same time. And it's a common tactic on the left. I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't know, that they'll say things like, well, we have to pass this law because it might save one person's life. And it's like everything else, right? First thing you do is decide what you want. Next thing you do is decide what you're willing to give up to get it. So all those civil liberties that y'all are going to give up because this Darwin candidate might end up dying, that's okay. That's the way the left always works. In the name of security and protection, you should give up your civil liberties. So anyway, before we jump into this next one on mass migration, Jeff Nicholas, go to you first. Thoughts on the suppression of legitimate information and the censorship that has been happening in the big tech world?
I think you cut off the head of the snake of all these organizations. You arrest them for voter fraud and everything else, and you make them a utility. Who cares about Mark Zuckerberg? Why would Trump even entertain the guy unless I don't think the guy brings anything to the table. He would be nothing but there's no advantage in having him on your team, so to speak. It would just bring up more questions. And I say just steamroll the guys. And then you start watching all these people, you bring in, if it's a utility, then it's got to have there's got to be I believe there's some type of oversight through a board and some other things that have to take place, and there's reporting that has to be done. And you have to make sure that you're not screwing the people and creating. I think Facebook will be chopped up. They tried to do something like X, and it failed miserably. And I forget what it was called. It was called Threads or something.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a joke. So why is he going to? Who cares what Mark Zuckerberg does? I don't get it. Maybe it's because I'm not on Facebook. Our company is, but I'm not. I don't have to get on it. So I wouldn't even know how to make a post. So I just think it's ridiculous. Don't give the guy any credence.
No, he's a snake completely. Jeff Capps, your thoughts on all this big tech censorship?
I go along with Jeff in the sense that steamroll the guys, but I would take a little different approach. I believe it was Machiavelli said in the Prince that if you want to impress upon someone if they do something to you that your response is going to be 100,000 times worse. I think you call them in the office and you say, "Look, boys, we got a problem. This is what it is." And I think that you have a very strong case for leverage. If you wouldn't go to a negotiation table from a weak position.
Mm-hmm.
You would go from a strong position. We can use the "my button's bigger than your button" thing.
Yeah.
Or we could use the example where Trump pulled the picture of the guy's house out of his pocket and said, "If anything happens in this withdrawal, then we got this." He didn't say that. He just handed a picture of his own home. If your opponent, your enemy, whatever you want to classify them as, if they think that whatever they do to you, that your response is going to be so overwhelmingly, demonstrably worse, they are less likely to take the first shot. I think the fact that Trudeau, I'm half Canadian, by the way. My mother was from Saskatchewan.
Okay.
And that's all right. Apologies accepted later. But Trudeau came running to Donald Trump when the tariffs were raised. So did the Mexican president. They talked a big game, but when it all came down to it, they're going to stop those people coming across the border, just like they did on his first term.
Yeah.
And you deal with the position of strength, not weakness, or not what can we do to make it better. Oh, that's so much bullshit. Sorry about the language. You have to go from a position of strength, and that's the reason Zuckerberg went to Mar-a-Lago, because he's scared, and he should be.
Yeah.
And again, that's the Prince principle right there. And I hope he exercises it to the nth degree, and I hope that as this process goes on, the dominoes start to fall, and then maybe because a lot of these things happen in trends. Even the woke now, people are starting to reject the wokeness. They're starting to reject that far left ideology, and I personally think they wanted to reject it all the whole time, but now they've got a foothold to stand on, and we can only hope that this continues to move in that direction, and we end up at least with some equilibrium here. I was okay with the liberals back in the day. I'm not okay with what liberals classify themselves now.
Yeah.
And as a conservative, it's not even a conversation that you can have with most of them, because it's not pleasant. It serves no useful purpose. And, what is it? What is that saying? Don't try to teach a pig how to dance. You'll only get mad about it, or something like that. Let's get on with the process. Let Trump do his thing, and hopefully he'll take this negotiation from a strong position, and he'll have his way.
I think I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's something along the lines of, you only get covered in shit and the pig will enjoy it. Something to that effect.
Yeah. I see some guys talking about why is Rumble and chomping down on censoring. That's because BlackRock bought 25% of Rumble, I believe.
Yeah, big. So they bought a large percentage, and then there was some sort of stock split. So they don't have the percentage that they did have. But yes, BlackRock and Vanguard both have their hooks into Rumble. I think Chris Pavlich, the founder and CEO, is a good guy. He's got good intentions. But if Rumble becomes too much of a problem, then they'll do the same thing to him that they're doing to Elon right now. The lawfare that we've seen, launched against Trump is just as bad against, Elon Musk. A judge yesterday, or the day before, I should say, nuked his compensation agreement, which has been disputed by one shareholder who holds 9 shares in Tesla for $56 billion. And the board has voted in favor of paying Elon what he's owed. 72% of shareholders have voted in favor of giving him what he's owed. But this activist judge has said, well, we've got this one person who owns 9 shares, doesn't agree with it. So therefore, he's not getting his $56 billion.
Yeah. We have to get to the head of the snake somehow. It's a very arduous process, because they get their hooks in there. They can go to the CEO. They have somebody else that they don't know go up to them and say, hey, do you want to just see what happened to you? What happened to the CEO in Manhattan? I saw your son Joey at, St. Joseph's Prep School the other day. How's he doing in school? Just letting you know that the honeypot traps, the threats, the extortion, the bribery, it's merciless. And unless you have to be situated kind of like a Donald Trump to be impervious to it and have the means to be able to withstand it, it's very difficult. So you take the hard work this guy did with Rumble, or, I hope he's a good guy. And then you get somebody that gets greedy and lustful, and all of a sudden they're doing whatever they can to get control of it because they want it and they want to use it. It's mob tactics,
I think Chris Pavlich is one of the good guys, to be honest with you. When Pavel Durov was detained by the French, so Pavel Durov, software genius, invented Telegram. He's a billionaire. He escaped Russia because he was being persecuted there. Macron tricked him into doing a dinner meeting in France, which is his new home. He went to the dinner meeting and was promptly arrested and was held, I want to say, for somewhere around a week or so, because the French government insisted that they be given a backdoor to his software, just like they had on Twitter before Elon, and they currently have on all the Meta products. And he ended up eventually caving and gave them a backdoor so they could get the information off of Telegram. And I mean, it's a deep rabbit hole, but I can end it by saying this. If Elon Musk was to step foot in Europe right now, he would be promptly put in jail. So next one up here that I already have: citizens break elite consensus for mass migration in U.S., UK, and Canada. So this guy here, Keir Starmer, is the current, for crying out loud, Prime Minister of Great Britain. He's hardcore left wing. He kicked 3,000 hardened criminals out of their prison system so that they could put 3,000 people in prison because they said things online that may have hurt somebody's feelings. You can't make this shit up. But he's hardcore left wing. You got, Biden. We've discussed him at length. And then down here, by the way, Jeff Capps, our in-house name for Justin is Justin Trudeau because he's a turd. We don't call him Justin Trudeau, but he's had to do a mea culpa because Canadians are pissed. Their country has been so disrupted by letting in so many people from shithole third world countries. I mean, you import the third world, you become the third world. But even the Keir Starmer, clown is saying that it was done on purpose on behalf of the globalists and that it's hurting the UK and that it's got to end. And now all of a sudden, at the end of Biden's installation, they've clamped down a little bit, not much, but it's so he can say that he's on it, right? He's defending it. This was a global initiative to weaken Western countries. It's all it was. And I don't know that the UK or Canada will have the guts or the wherewithal or the manpower to do mass deportations. But I know for a fact that Tom Homan's going to do it. I've worked with Tom, been in meetings with him. We've supported his organization, Border 911, and it is absolutely going to happen. Jeff Nicholas, you want to say anything quickly on this mass migration that's been going on, hurting us and all of our allies?
This is just another one of those things of the laundry list I listed, why these people need to face some severe punishment. They opened these borders up. People came in and killed citizens that should not have ever been harassed or touched. They've taken jobs. They've hurt children. There are lots of children that are missing. We are a very disturbingly evil nation. As a people, I think we're partly to blame for our apathy over the years and what we've let this happen, and we haven't put our foot down, and we somehow, got lulled into the fact that, electronic voting machines are accurate and safe, and then these people have brought in their unelected bureaucrats, and we helped create the deep and wide swamp. And I'm partly to blame for that as well. We as a nation, we really do deserve judgment. Hopefully God's mercy and grace will keep us from a lot of that, and we'll be able to help get a lot of these people out of here. But we've got to get rid of these corrupt bureaucrats and lawmakers. Yeah. We have to get rid of them.
Totally agree.
They really need to pay a price, and the price needs to be so substantial that everybody will think 5 times before they ever go down the same path.
Agreed. Jeff Capps, any comments on the mass migration?
Yeah, as far as Canada goes, I don't think they have the nerve to do anything. And just as a side, I think Trudeau survived a no confidence vote in the Parliament here just a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And he was close to losing it. But you're looking at a country with 41 million people with a landmass pretty much the size of the United States. And the Northern Territories and the upper parts of Alberta and Saskatchewan and British Columbia, they are cold, and I don't really know how many people want to go there to start with. But I don't think they're going to push back on it. I think the cartels control Mexico, so what we have coming up from the southern border is primarily influenced by the cartels and their influence on the Mexican government. And if it wasn't for that, then there may be a more reasonable explanation why they're allowing those people to come up. But the wall was a big thing, and the argument that I had with a lot of people initially was that the wall, you can't keep everybody out. I said, I don't think you understand. We're bringing things to choke points to where people that are claiming for asylum have to come into ports of entry. I don't think you understand the rules. So you can't argue with that side because again, we go back to the tweed-wearing liberals are trying to set policy for people that they don't want to get their hands dirty. They just want to sound like the benevolent, wonderful people that have compassion and for others, and it's going to take hardcore policies like Trudeau ran down here to America when he to meet Trump in Mar-a-Lago. It's the Mexican president talking tough, but behind closed doors, I think Trump told the truth about what she really said.
Yeah,
and that is they have to keep those people at the southern border. I think that's Oaxaca, is it not? They have to keep the people at that southern border from coming in, because there's no reason why those people should come all the way from Central America, all the way up to Mexico to get here. And who's trying to stop them? They're giving them buses trying to get them up here.
Well, those would be NGOs funded by our tax dollars.
That's a great explanation to me. I'm like going.
Well, that so we've spent a lot of time on the border issue. We brought in all kinds of subject matter experts, and the fact of the matter is that, you know, this administration and previous administrations, not Trump, but have leveraged NGOs to do things that the American population, generally speaking, would not agree with. So they fund the NGOs. They help get the invaders to the border. Before they even crossed the border, they were registering many of them to vote, give them their phone. Jeff and I are both friends with Sheriff Mark Lamb. And in January of last year, the sheriff said that they had arrested some people, and they had just been given prepaid debit cards with somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 each by NGOs before they crossed the border. The mainstream media absolutely excoriated Mark. And then 6 or 7 weeks after he broke it, they had to admit that it was really happening. The NGOs, just not to go too far off topic here, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So one of the things that's being bandied around in Tom Homan's group is using NGOs that are favorable to America and having them help with the deportation efforts, so that it's at arm's length, just like the Democrats have been doing to us for years. And so, again, careful what precedent you set, right?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
So I've got 8 tabs left open. I'm going to skip about 8. There was about 16. I carved it down to 8 so that we can get through this thing and wrap it up tonight. But here's Morning Joe. This guy's a bought and paid for establishment shill. He is so full of shit. I can't believe that anybody's bullshit meter doesn't go off when this guy speaks. So on the right-hand side is what Jeff Capps referred to, where Biden fell asleep in Angola this week in Africa. And the one on the left from Morning Joe, this is what he had to say earlier this year when all of the mockingbirds were saying the same thing with regards to Joe Biden's mental acuity.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it. And you start your.
So I don't know that we really need to dive into it much more than to say the media is just propaganda straight up. I mean, their numbers are crashed. Nobody trusts them. That their approval rating's lower than Congress's approval rating is. And Trump, a big reason that he did so well in this election is because he ignored the mainstream media and he went to where the audience was, which is Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, and other podcasters telling the truth. I mean, Jeff Nicholas, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, they're useless. It's one knucklehead calling another knucklehead genius. You know,
I'll buy that.
You know, that's how all these PhDs in these colleges get to where they are. You're brilliant. No, you're brilliant. Oh, you can be a PhD. No, you should be a PhD. Okay, we're all PhDs. We're the smartest people in the room.
I'm a college dropout.
PhD means piled higher and deeper.
Well, you just stole my next line. I was fixing to say that I'm a college dropout, but I was always taught that a PhD is pilot high and deep.
It is.
Jeff Capps, any quick comments on the mainstream media, the Mockingbird media?
Yeah, as long as we're being honest with each other. I didn't even make it through junior college, so okay. So Joe Scarborough should be put in jail for that haircut alone. All right, but we have a saying down here in Texas. You may have heard it before. He's useless as pin shit on a pump handle. I don't know how he ever made it as far as he did. Him and Mika, it makes me ill. The only thing would be worse if he to watch The View.
Right.
If somebody made me watch The View,
yeah,
I would be like Joe. I'd be falling asleep. I couldn't stand it. But look, these guys. I don't know if they really believe what they're saying or they're getting paid a lot. Well, I know they're getting paid a lot, but I just shake my head and go, I got other things to think about.
Well,
that's insane.
I think, just to answer your question, my position on that is that whether it's Obama or any of the Mockingbird media downstream from him, there's a good portion of them that believe that if they tell the same lie over and over again, that it just becomes fact. It's truth.
That's a typical propaganda thing.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Just remember, journalists were tried in Nuremberg as well for helping to promote propaganda. And, whether you believe in QAnon or whatever, or, all that other kind of stuff out there, there was a comment made on that line one night. It said FISA works both ways, and they could have activated that a long time ago, and those assets may still be employed. And I think that's one reason why Space Force was formed, and I think that's one reason why the DIA, I'm hoping, is being run by the good guys. I think it is, and it's not the NSA, it's not the CIA, it's not the FBI, and I think that these people, you get comfortable after 4 years and you forget what you think and say and do. And there's somebody in the background keeping tabs, and they're, and one reason why you probably haven't seen a lot of this stuff brought to light is they don't want anybody to know what's getting ready to hammer, because these people have not been indicted and convicted of treason and other felonies that could be pardoned by an exiting guy who's really a puppet. So I think everybody thinks these people are going to walk. I think that I think the wheels of justice, these slow grinding wheels, they've been 4 years to do it. There's a lot of information out there. I think that these guys are going to have their butts handed to them.
Well, we can only hope that's the case. So we don't condone murder, that's for sure. But the CEO of United Healthcare that was assassinated, and that was like in the early morning hours. Everybody, I don't know if y'all caught it, but when they showed the initial video, the security camera stuff, it looked like the shooter, the assassin, wasn't very proficient with a gun and didn't really know what they were doing. But then they turned around and found the shells, and they had words inscribed on them: deny, defend, depose. Well, that is a statement that this CEO had coined inside of United Healthcare, which has the highest rate of declining to pay people's, health related bills. And I mean, United's so bad that they're actually now going to go after your doctors and anesthesiologists. If they feel that you were given too much anesthesia and they took too long to do the procedure, then they're not going to pay the bill. So,
that was not a professional hit job. And it could have been a disgruntled person, but at the end of the day, he had a silencer on there, and they might have, if they were custom made rounds, he tried to maybe put a lower power of their subsonic rounds. Well, you've got to have a higher pressure of gas to cycle that slide with a suppressor on there because of the gases. So that's what will happen when you don't have the right suppressor for a weapon. It doesn't cycle, and you end up with a single shot. So, at least that's my understanding of it.
And my feeling is that he shot him in the leg first, the torso second, and the head third, because of those three: deny, defend, depose. Whether he's a professional assassin or not, I don't think he was professional either, but he was effective. And there are witnesses who said that he sat out front of that building all night long waiting for that CEO to come out. And I'm not condoning killing this guy, but in addition to United Healthcare having the worst record for denying legitimate health insurance claims, he was under investigation for insider trading, and so were some of the other C-level executives that are still alive at United Healthcare. So don't condone violence, but can certainly understand, why people are, not too happy with clowns like that. Jeff Capps, any comments on this assassination?
That's kind of not really my area of expertise. The fact that he sat out there all night, and some of this I'm just finding out right now, showed he had some serious resolve.
Yeah.
So whatever reasoning was behind what he did, he was serious about it. And he wasn't walking away until he got whatever it is he got done. So like anybody, I watch police shows. He's going to get caught. They're going to find him. If they haven't caught him already, they're going to catch him. And we'll see what happens to him. Prison at the very least, probably for a while.
Yeah, they're probably going to catch this guy, right? Like he used one of those public bikes, where as a getaway vehicle, which means he had to pay for it with a credit or debit card of some sort. So there's going to be a trace there. And I read earlier today that whatever the company was that owns those bikes had already pinpointed it down to the same bike, time, everything. Then, of course, there's pictures of him exposing his face in front of security cameras afterwards with a big grin on his face. He's probably going to be caught. It'll be interesting to hear what happened. If I had to guess, I would say that somebody in his family died of cancer or something like that because they were denied coverage, but still doesn't validate it. But we'll move on from there. We'll try to get through this thing here. So I got a kick out of this. Imagine, if you will, pardoning your son for the crimes you impeached your predecessor for investigating over the whole Ukraine phone call, right? So that was one of the memes that occurred, or I took a liking to today. This one, I got to go Jeff Nicholas first. This is just some messed up stuff. And I've heard about this before, but I figured I'd pull it up today because it was in my news cycle. Men's cuddling group aims to redefine masculinity and heal trauma. The 2-year-old group draws men from various backgrounds: a 37-year-old Mormon who works as an airport gate agent, a 57-year-old married father of 3, and a 62-year-old retiree. I will preface the conversation on saying this is just a bunch of homos.
I never heard about a men's cuddling group until just now. And so I'm just disturbed by the photo. The guy in the middle looks like he's in hog heaven. So, yeah.
I've known Jeff for a couple of years now. It's the first time I've ever seen him speechless.
I don't really know what to say.
Jeff.
I need a hug. I just know I need a hug right now.
Ain't gonna happen here. Yeah, go find your one.
I guess I'll hug myself.
Jeff Capps. Have you heard of these cuddling groups?
First time for me. I probably don't think I'm going to be joining that group, to be honest with you. I think that might be a little, at least not get my picture taken with them doing it. That's pretty sad, buddy. That's really all I can say about that. That's one of those things you go home. My father used to get mad at me. He'd look at me, and I swear this is what he did. He'd go, Well, that's how I feel about that picture. That defies description.
I would say that we need a massive influx of toxic masculinity to nuke this crap.
Is it possible? I mean, is a cuddling group this? is it legit, or is this a group of guys they convinced to pose in a group and they get together and just talk, and they're like, they're trying to pretend it's a bro hug, and then they're saying it's a cuddling group? Because what do you do? You just sit around hugging each other?
Take a closer look. There isn't an ounce of testosterone in that.
No,
picture.
there's not. I mean, what does it say they're trying to do? Redefine masculinity. Well, if you're trying to redefine it, isn't that
There's no other way to square this. There's no other way to square this other than there are a bunch of tenderfoots.
Oh, dude. I mean, it makes me even more worried about, is this in the United States?
It sure is. Yeah. I first heard of it a year ago or so. For some reason it popped up in my news feed again today, but it's been around for a while. But,
all right, everybody, you've heard me in the past on these shows, we need to return to biblical masculinity. That is not it.
that is absolutely not it. That's for sure. So this next one, not as funny or off the wall as the last one, but this caught my eye. A single bee is ignored, but when millions come together, even the bravest run in fear. The one thing that the government fears is the day we stand together. So through this election cycle, we preached the message that was given to us by Jason Wilson, which other, influencers and creators with many more followers than we have were doing the same thing on his behalf. And we told people, like, if we preach to our audience, go vote, that's preaching to the choir. But what we said to our audience is when you go to vote, take somebody with you who doesn't normally vote so we can make this thing too big to rig. You got 10 million gun owners in America that didn't vote in 2020. That's enough to swing an election right there, those disenfranchised people. If you look at the curves, I've mentioned this before, so I'll be brief. If you look at the curve in Wisconsin for Kamala, it goes like this. There's a ballot dump at 3 a.m. and it goes like that. And Donald Trump's red line still stays above it, which we made it too big to rig. You can only cheat so much. And thankfully we made it too big to rig. But the reason I put this meme up is this is what we preach to people. Your vote does matter. Yes, there's been rampant cheating that's gone on for years and years, but you can't justify an election result where 150% of eligible voters turn out. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we made it too big to rig. So there's not much more to add to that. Now, actually, I should have probably had this one in the last. Now, tell me if it's a little bit too early for this meme or not, but I'm going to share it anyway. CEO Brian Thompson's acute lead poisoning was deemed a pre-existing condition. Claim denied. Is it too early for that?
Well, hey, it happened after the fact, right?
Well, no, I'm just saying, is it too early to put up a meme like that after this guy was just assassinated? Again, we don't wish any ill will upon anybody, but, high-speed lead poisoning, claim denied.
If you look, could you say it's morose? Could you say it's unnecessary? Yeah, I mean, that guy now is in eternity, and based upon his actions, I don't know where he's spending it. People that get caught up in all this stuff, they may start out altruistic,
possible.
And you get caught up in all this stuff. At the end of the day, there's a day of reckoning. And although it's not, when this day happens, we don't want to gloat in it.
For sure.
But a day of reckoning is coming, and let's just call it poetic justice.
Yeah,
it's poetic justice.
That works. Let me go to something that's I was going to say humorous. I don't know if it's humorous or just asinine or both, but this is gun safety training. It just ain't what it used to be.
Yeah. He probably
Again.
had some waxy buildup. He's just trying to clear it out.
Yeah, apparently. Not much.
As far as the memes go, that the last one, you can make a case for that. It's freedom of speech. The one before that with the bees. I don't know if you guys know about a book called Ordinary Men. It was about a group of German. I wouldn't even say they were soldiers; they were police officers who forced to take part in the Holocaust.
Okay.
And so the people could have stood up against that, but they chose not to. So I don't know. If we saw something like millions of people in an uprising. I don't know if we could count on the people that were under orders to not do what they're told. It's a very interesting book. It's worth the read. It's called Ordinary Men, and but this one here is great. This one with the gun safety, that's great. Yeah, buddy. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
It will goes to show you. Remember the video of the DEA agent in the school in New York? Shoots himself in the thigh. I just remember, I'm a professional. Boom. Oh, all right. That's going to hurt. That's going to leave a mark. Blew his thigh out.
Well, and he tried to play it off like, I'm the expert here. Don't be alarmed. I did this on purpose, blah, 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 blah. I'm looking for a short version right now. I found a version here. Not sure just how long it is.
Second here. The thing that always, when you're at the range and you can do things, and I don't think he probably shot that often. He was probably a desk jockey. The thing is, anything can happen to anybody at any time. You never want to be that guy. And one of the things I've learned in my short time here on Earth is you're not all that in a bag of chips.
Right.
You got to be cognizant.
That's some Barney Fife stuff right there, though. That's what that is.
Boy, ain't that the truth? So I found the shortest version I could find is 1 minute and 47 seconds. The rest are all over 2 minutes, but I'll show the final meme that I had queued up. So the new precedent will be for outgoing presidents to allow their administration to behave lawlessly and then pardon them all on the way out. Great job defending democracy, guys. He really opened Pandora's box with this pardon stuff. So we beat that to death, though. So what we will do is I'm happy to share the video that Jeff just mentioned. Let me get it pulled up here. All right, here we go. Guns don't kill people.
I have a gun on my side right here. Just this week, at the beginning of the week, a young boy, not even 16 years old, was killed because he was playing with a gun. And see, this is an unloaded gun. Right here, this is a gun. No, empty weapon. Empty weapon. This is a Glock 40. 50 Cent, Too Short, all of them talk about Glock 40. Okay, I'm the only one in this room professional enough that I know of to carry this Glock 40. I'm the only one. No more. Is everybody all right? You all right? God, that's it. Whoa. I got it. Yeah. AP.
Accidental discharge, what AD stands for.
Listen up, guys. But listen up. And I made a mistake. So listen to me. Guys, listen to me. Yeah, listen to me. See that how the accident happened? It can happen to you and you can be blown away. Okay? So guys, never play with guns. See how accidents happen? They happen. Okay, now I'll probably never ever be able to show guns again.
I mean,
it's so sad.
God bless him for making a recovery there and using it as a life lesson. But yeah, like I said, I don't know if the audience heard me or not, but when he said AD a couple times in a row there, that's an accidental discharge.
Yeah.
So Anyway, we're not going to do the conflicted question tonight because we've been going for 2.5 hours here, which is a little on the long side. Although, funny story I'll tell y'all, we have got a handful, probably at least 6 emails from people asking us if we could step it up and do the Sean Ryan style 5-hour a day podcasts, and it's just not in the cards. But a couple hours is usually what we do 7 days a week. But I just want to quickly remind
he does
people,
5 hours a day.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, it's extreme, right? So actually, I just want to remind everybody, if you head over to patreon.com/survival dispatch, there's a clickable link below. You can sign up for free, get all of our briefs. If you end up a paying member, $9.99 a month will give you access to our private Signal group, which is just a massive volume of information and camaraderie that happens in there. It couldn't have turned out better, to be quite frank. And actually, so last question to you two is right after this. So what we do, Jeff Capps, just because it's your first time on, every podcast out there reports on something that's in the news cycle. They editorialize whatever that thing is. But then invariably you go and have a look at the comment section and you'll see disenfranchised people saying things like, all I see are a bunch of talking heads. Nothing I do will change anything. You know, those sort of comments. So when I started Survival Dispatch News 330 episodes ago, a couple years now, I was adamant that when we get to the end of each episode that we give some homework to our audience, you know, things they can do in light of everything, or some of the things at least that we discussed on this episode. So I've got 5 things, and then I'll give you all a chance to add to that if you want. So don't patronize companies who are aligned with the globalists. And, you know, Jaguar, which I now refer to as Fagwar, would be a good recent example. You know, don't support companies like that if you don't agree with their BS. Cut the cable to mainstream media and hit them in the pocketbook. I mean, I did that many years ago myself. Cindy and I got married. She kind of had some shows she liked to watch, but we ended up cutting the cable a second time. A waste of money. Spread truthful news sources like Survival Dispatch News. Elon Musk said it best. The citizen journalists who have no dog in the hunt like us, that's where you're going to find the truth. Don't give a penny to social media platforms that censor American patriots. So that would especially be Meta. And shop locally at privately owned stores whenever you can. So support other Americans like that. Jeff Nicholas, any other things that you can think of that hit on what we discussed tonight that people can do?
Oh, I would say pray for our country. We've got to get President Trump and safely to the inauguration and then keep him protected after that. And then we've got to have the will to do some very hard things that need to send a message to people who are evil. And, I've heard many people say, well, we're not even there yet. We have no idea that things are going down. So I think it's going to be very difficult. So keep praying for our nation. We need revival. We need to come back to the Lord in a way that only He can save our country. Donald Trump is not the savior of our country. He is. And so that would be my biggest suggestion.
Yep, I totally agree. Jeff Capps.
And my whole ethos is based on structure, rhythm, and timing. We have structure in our belief system, how we feel, anything from politics to Christianity to whatever it is you want to work on. In this particular case, I would say that we have a structure in that we understand the principles that we want to live by and what we don't want to live by. The rhythm is how we develop our ability to move around inside that sphere and be able to gain knowledge and learn why we believe what we believe, or give credence to why we believe what we believe, so we can actually convey that message to others in a sincere manner. And the third thing is time. It's knowing when to interject, when to step in, when to step out, and how to. If I were talking in terms of diet, I would say, we talk about what we eat, when we eat it, how much we eat, the frequency, all those things. So the timing is when you actually input your thoughts and your actions into we go back to structure now, structure, rhythm, and timing. So it's a self-perpetuating cycle. We got to be in the constant process of learning, adapting, and be willing to take the steps necessary, because it's no different than in training, in that you have to take the first step. Once you take the first step, then other worlds start to open up to you. And once that starts to open up, you become knowledge. You're holding, these are bigger than NASA computers ever were back when we were going to the moon. But they took up buildings and buildings and buildings. You have all that right here in your palm of your hand, in your back pocket. So use it. You don't have to listen to lies and bullshit. You can walk away, or you can educatively dispute it. And don't be scared to stand on your principles.
Yep, well said, Jeff Capps. Appreciate you joining us tonight. When I click to end this brief, by the way, or this episode, I should say, it's going to play a closing message. And then if y'all want to do a quick AAR back here, just hang out while it kicks us out. It'll bring us back in as soon as it ends. But other than that, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
Amen.
My name is Chris Heaven, and I'm the CEO of Survival Dispatch. I was a member of our national powerlifting team for many years and won many state, national, and world championships. Even though I'm in great shape for being 55 years old, I am not immune to father time. Most of us feel weaker and make more trips to the bathroom as we get older. U.S. Army research has led to a breakthrough for the #1 water for older Americans. It's not a special sports drink, but a mix with essential nutrients most hydration drinks lack. Keyword, hydration. These nutrients are proven to enhance muscle strength, reduce soreness, and improve bladder health. A Texas doctor leveraged this research and formulated a drink mix to help you stay strong. Click the link below for up to 44% off at nativehydrate.com/dispatch, plus free shipping and a free gift. This is one of the best deals I've seen for high quality BCAA drink mixes. Don't miss this deal.